So this is going to be probably longer than I want it to be, but I've had wanted to do a video on this so-called the woke and feel-good movement. So first I'm going to define the terms for a reason. I do have my notes here with me I'll be looking at. Keep me on track. So the definitions of woke and tribalism. I bring this up on purpose. So just a second here. So woke has to do with being aware of prejudice and racism, and tribalism has to do with obviously defending your own tribe or community. But the problem is that when the radical left, we know what conservative, when it's extreme, it's kind of like people who are like Nazi premises kind of stuff and going crazy with boundaries. So the radical left would be the opposite. No boundaries, everything's the same, so on and so forth. However, the more radical they get, ironically, in a lack of awareness, they end up just reclassifying everybody indefinitely, and it ends up isolating people. So I want to make sure it's specified before I get started, so everybody knows what terms I'm working with when I say woke. Now, let me get back to here. Alright, so the woke and feel good movement. What is this all about? Alright, so I'm going to start off with, how does the radical left, quote, woke, affect people and ideas? As someone who enjoys studying psychology, I've indulged in researching the differences between cults and religions for about 3 years or so now. Mostly atheist content such as Telltale, Matt Dillahunty, and Suris. I'm probably mispronouncing it. S-U-R-I-S. Unfortunately, even smart people can be indoctrinated by ideologies. So, I'm going to make a point. So before I throw anybody under the bus or mistakes or anything, I'll point out my own mistakes and how it affected me. So, this affected me as well. When I'm watching the atheist content, this is like, again, 1.5 years to 2 years ago now, when I originally made a video about vaccines, right? Yeah, when the town I was living in, the small town, I made 2 observations. And that is, they were, one, the people freaking out, taking everything off the shelves and over toilet paper, and you couldn't hardly get anything. I won't go into that, but that makes no sense either. And then there were the people who wanted to do something, wanted to, be productive somehow. So I was one of those people. I could stand just far enough back. I was still kind of indoctrinated by some of their far left that was intertwined into some of the atheist channels I just mentioned. But I didn't want to be one of the toilet paper grabber people. I wanted to actually do something or be productive. So, and I will make a link in the video to that video for the sake of saying, hey, this is a mistake. I'm going to leave the video on my channel because, unlike another example of radical left destroying monuments or whatever and paintings because they think that the people at that time should have known different, I'm going to leave it up because it's a mistake, and I have no reason to hide my mistakes. I would rather point them out and move forward. So back to my point. My friend Brian had made a valid point, is that laws, let me get this right here, the law should never enforce decisions regarding medical procedures, and that includes, obviously, being forced to get shots. While I still support the science of vaccines, so I'm not anti-vax in general, but there wasn't enough information on COVID at that time, nor was there enough information that would validate whether or not those vaccines were helpful or not. Like, it was just made. So enforcing people to like either do this and have a card. I still have mine somewhere where I got the shots, and yeah, he was at risk at losing his job as a, not the house care, but he had a side job and taking care of people. It was similar, but they were threatening to take away his job if he didn't get it. And you can't force people to do medical procedures, especially if the science isn't out yet. So that was wrong. So I wanted to point that out. So that's a mistake that I made. Even I was affected by some of this radical left. Now, I know this is going to show up reverse, so I'm going to end up reading most of this to you. But I do want to at least verify that this is a real conversation. And this is the last time that I talked to my friend, ex-friend. So, it started off talking about, of all things, Hocus Pocus. I don't know if you can tell this light, the movie. And I'll scan through it for a second. So this is a real conversation I'm going to read through. Because it's going to be reverse if I don't. So, Hocus Pocus. I sent a video that was from It's a Gundam, because I think he's kind of funny when it comes to certain things, about Hocus Pocus 2. So this is the beginning of an example of how wokeism has pretty much destroyed anything it touches when it comes to movies, shows, and I'll go on here in a second. So I showed him that, and he said that Hocus Pocus 2 was good, but not like the original one. And then continued to say it will not be part of the cult classic hits. So I went, meh, shake my head. Which Tony continued, it's not really a bad movie. That's why it will never be the classic cult original. Which I responded, right, ... Then Tony continued, the original was terrible, but it reminds us of when we were young, so we love it. Talking about nostalgia. So, I argued that the old one was good, but the new one feels a bit pushy. Like many remakes, movies are meant to entertain, not to push political agendas and ideas. It takes away from the plot and the ability for most of us to relate. Into which he responded, no, it was terrible and had a very poor rating. Which I said, if you say so. Which Tony continued, it's true, it's not just me saying so. Each year the ratings were better for it. I'm like, okay, whatever you say. I will say this, because you can see this in reverse probably. And I had missed this in my conversation, where Tony was like, fuck off, right? So, I didn't even read that. Totally missed it. Here's a review, and then went over, let's see here, do I want to read all this? Wrote me a paragraph. Hocus Pocus, this is what Tony said. Hocus Pocus is throbbing, unmitigated crime against cinema. The film's underwhelms in spectacular fashion, operating on a level where it's never silly enough to get its own joke, but yet does have enough meat on its bones to qualify for an actual horror movie. It's a shambling plot in which 3 children-eating witches are brought back from the dead by a frustrating teen virgin. Is about pursuing... I don't know if I even want to read all this. Pursuing... Basically, I don't know how Tony got this. Said that had something to do with pedophilia, which is bullshit. And even though it aims to occupy same holiday-specific space as movies like Nightmare Before Christmas, when it was first came out in 1993, blah blah blah, released on July, and it could have nearly been forgotten by Halloween, the holiday the movie is actually about. because it's so bad, it's now a cult classic. So, I don't know if I really want to read all of this. Just kind of a bit of a ramble. And another one, the main problem with Hocus Pocus as evidence of reviewers who cemented it in 30% rating of Rotten Tomatoes, like anybody cares what Rotten Tomatoes thinks, is that it will never figures out what it wants to be, and it's not scary enough to be a horror film, and it's fast enough for an adventure flick. Essentially, like, this is the lack of self-reflection of the movies coming out today, really. And again, this... Sorry for going back and forth here, but I'm not reading these whole 2 paragraphs. This video will be long enough as it is. But eventually, it's essentially just a rant on... let's see... Yeah, just a rant about how it's not funny or spooky or whatever. Just opinionated statement, which is fine. You're welcome to have an opinion. But I said, meh, better than the remake. And to which, and you can check out if you really want to, The Craft 2. I don't recommend it. You can find advertisements for it. But anyhow, and I'll leave a link to It's a Gundam version and any other videos I mentioned in here. But, which Tony responded, no, the remake was better, that's why it's not going to be called a cult classic. And I went, sure, laugh out loud. I agree the remake won't be a classic, laugh out loud. So we're kind of having a toss back and forth here. Already you can kind of sense a tension. I said, so this is where Tony said, that's because it's a good movie, not great, but to be a good cult classic. So, and this is where I'm being kind of an asshole. At this point, because we joked around before. This is somebody that I've been friends with for years. So, I didn't think this person was going to get too angry. But I sent a little video of a squirrel, which I'm not going to play right now. But I said, it's okay, gives head pats, I'm being sarcastic. I'm not changing my mind, but here's something cute to make you feel better about it. So I was being a slight ass, I will admit it. And to which, for no real reason I can think of, completely unrelated, I think it was supposed to offend me, but Tony sent something that had to do with Insane Clown Posse, FBI records or something. So I'm like, okay. And there's a reason why I'm showing you this, because Tony has been completely affected by the woke, and this argument reflects that conversation. So bear with me. So then I continued by showing another video that's not related to, I get it. If you watch anything from It's a Gundam, you're going to be like, oh, that's conservative, right? So I'm like, I'm trying to be balanced here. Trying to show more than one example. So I have a separate video, and this isn't mine, but this has to do with movies today and race swapping. I will also leave a link to this, like I said, in any other video I show, so you can watch it properly. Race and gender swapping characters, bullied actors, and lost opportunity for writers. So I mentioned about how, again, the woke is trying to diversitize and add as many different people as possible, and they're going so far out of their way for this that they're losing plot points, and they're also insulting the people that enjoy the film. Like, now I'll dig into that here in a second. And then I show another example from the same person, where again, this is a more actually of a leftist channel. I know it's in reverse, so I'll put it properly. Where stop branding critics as racist and sexist. So again, and this one was talking about the Rings of Power, which again is another terrible movie that the leftists has tried to make the Lord of the Rings into some kind of weirdness. And if you don't like what they're doing, then you're some kind of ism, right? So, Tony responded, I am more upset that female dwarfs in Lord of the Rings new series don't have beards. So I don't even know. I don't get into Lord of the Rings really. It wasn't my favorite. But it doesn't surprise me. That sounds like a woke kind of response. But I responded, see, it's not just me or guys saying this. Many movies are showing that uh, that more needs to push ideas than to tell compelling stories, which is why I said earlier. And then I gave another example. I know it's going to be reversed. I'll put the link in there. I'm just carrying with the conversation here. Whereas, again, people are switching out roles, and it's not really helping anybody. It's not empowering women by over politicalizing movies. That they're trying to sell an agenda and nobody's buying it. Right? So then, Tony responded, race swapping isn't really a thing. Now, this is an older video. There's some newer ones where it's finally came out, and it's as bad as it sounds. I'll leave the link. So, to respond to, get it on here, race swapping isn't really a thing, I showed the new woke cartoon Velma, right? If you don't know what it is, you're not missing much, but you can find it pretty easy if you look for it. Essentially, it's like Scooby-Doo, except they take out Scooby-Doo and they just fuck up every character possible in every way. Look into it yourself. But I respond, if you say so, because clearly they switched Velma out for a black Velma who's lesbian. Of course they did. It's woke. They got to make everything as diverse and weird as possible. And to which Tony responded, alright, they are fictional characters. And they can have any race or color they want. It's not hurting anybody. Okay, so I respond, poor Scooby-Doo, bet the dog disagrees. I'm still trying to be kind of silly, but trying to make my point. Or at least Scooby fans, which is my point, you're missing the point anyway. And to which Tony responded, what's the point? Racism? Said something about Matthew Lillard doesn't seem to care. I don't know who Matthew Lillard is, so that one was lost on me. He just wants to make a R-rated Scooby. I have no fucking clue what he was talking about. Give me a second. Lost my spot. If you turn the camera, they'll lose it. So anyhow, and I'm making a point with this, because Velma is insulting the fans, right? Like, the show is insulting to people who like that movie to begin with. Or not movie, the shows. They're insulting people who enjoy the original characters. So, I said, it's fine, we can discuss this later. It's not that complicated, but I try to say I suck at texting, and you're being kind of stubborn at times. It's a bad combo. Go enjoy a Disney movie with the family, right? And to which Tony responded, these are all dumb culture war shit that the right brings up that doesn't actually have any value. Which, I disagree. These are all very valid points. Because you're if you're going to make us, for example, sake of argument, if you're going to take the characters from Scooby-Doo and entirely change the character, why don't you just make up a new fucking cartoon? Why drag, and insult old fans in the process? So, Tony continues to say, do you feel that race swapping is hurting Hollywood career? To which sent me some random TikTok that to this day I still haven't watched because I don't really care. And I said, except it's not just the right. Now, I gave you examples besides It's a Gundam to make my point. Even people on the left-hand path were the ones who made those other videos. And I said, except it's not just the right, but you can talk now or later. I'm not going to text you about this for an hour. I'm going to paint and listen to music. Go have family time and call tomorrow if you want. So this is the last thing that Tony ever said to me was, yeah, maybe you're too conservative for me. I know it's in reverse, but just making a point. I have nothing to lie or hide. So the last thing I sent, and I know it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, Mom had bought me next day she came by to visit and brought me some a sandwich, and you can see in the background maybe it's got the Chick-fil-A And that's the last time Tony ever looked at anything I sent. So my point is that the wokeism has pretty much destroyed anybody. Like, if you get radicalized too far to the left, not only do your arguments not make sense, and they're indefensible, but you also shut yourself down to anybody who disagrees with you. This is a friend that helped me move to here. Like, this was one of my closest friends. And yeah, just because I disagree with a couple of videos and stuff, I was willing to be a friend and keep talking to this person. I don't care if we disagree with each other, but that was too much for Tony to deal with. Now, I'm going to cover, I got two more things here. Next one, it's a little bit related, but not exactly. So, I snapshot this, thankfully. It's going to be reversed, and now I'm going to actually read from my journal to cover some of my thoughts. So bear with me. I will read it properly. I just want to show this actually exists, and this is the post. So, Joseph Nunn, who is also Behemoth X on YouTube, I swear some people act like they are Jordan Peterson of fantasy, sci-fi movies, don't forget video game knowledge, and mash it together to sell their left-hand path knowledge. Right. Now that was clearly a shot at me, because I like to share some of my video game stuff once in a while. I don't, kind of like I made a video a long time ago talking about Orly and JD when they were together, about balance. You have to have a little bit of fun sometimes. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? How boring can that be? So, I'm going to actually do something I don't normally do. I'm going to read out of my Book of Shadows here, because I wrote down about this when it was fresh in my mind. Okay, so I've made a few changes. Now I'm still going to leave this channel as Gengar666, but the other one I've changed to as Conservative Satanist, which I'm not going to go into that in this video, it's going to be long enough. However, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, I suppose. But specifically with this, my response to Joseph Nunn's post, so wow, I used to have respect for Joseph's opinion. But let's break down everything that he said that's wrong here. Obviously, he doesn't like Jordan. Most people on the left don't. And yes, I respect his opinion, talking about Jordan's opinion on psychology, science, and mostly with psychology. But if I'm, quote, acting like a sci-fi version of him, then that means that maybe I'll look up to him. And to a certain degrees I do. I think that there's something to take away from most of anybody. And let's see here. But that doesn't change my belief system. I'm still going to have my own beliefs and my own ideas. I just take away what I agree with and move on, just like anybody else does. Use what helps you and move on. So let's see here. This is where, okay, I lost my spot here. Don't forget video games knowledge and mesh it up together to sell the left-hand pass. So this is where he's just punching down. I say, congrats, you're different from me. Yes, I enjoy sharing my hobbies, video games and painting. What's wrong with that? If you look at Behemoth's channel, he doesn't share any hobbies. Do I degrade him for not sharing it? No, that's his channel. He can do what he wants. Same with me, same with anybody else. I just happen to like to try to share things I think are not related for a bit of balance, make things interesting. So that doesn't really bother me too much. But lastly, I'm not really selling anything. I've not made $1 off of YouTube, nor have I made any money selling anything to anybody. I'm simply sharing my ideas and perception of what I see. Let's see here. So, give me a moment. Okay, and lastly, as a side note, he probably just read the description of my videos and a handful of titles, and it's easier to troll that way than to actually look at my content. So, now this person I'm not going to name out loud, but I will cover what the mistake this person did, because this person didn't actually attack me directly like the other one did, but I still think that there's something that needs to be pointed out. This individual that is also on Facebook had made a post which is related to this because it's has a YouTube channel, and that I've respected for a long time, regarding like left-hand path and stuff like that, had conflated Jordan Peterson with Andrew Tate. These two people are not the same in any way. In which somebody actually on the left-hand path tried to defend in that post, again, what I just said, that they're not the same. They represent two entirely different things. Andrew Tate's like extreme, you want to say radical manosphere level, that would be it. While Jordan Peterson's just a psychiatrist, in a, well, let me think here. He also did university lectures, and they're not the same at all. Anybody who watches either of their content would know the difference. But, yeah, this individual had made a post that was conflating and taking out of context everything that Jordan said, which is, I've seen this before many times. So, this individual posted this crap, and someone tried to, okay, I just said that, answered with some patriarchy and posted news clip, there you go, taking everything Jordan said and stood for out of context. So that's the kind of bullshit that I'm against. Is people taking things out of context to fit their own narrative. I try to be as honest as I can with my information. I expect others to do the same. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Now, I won't go into the other one because that's not really related to this. I don't really care if somebody, what form, when you get on the left-hand path, a lot of people will have different understandings, and I try not to pick at everything. But that one in particular did bother me because the two individuals are not the same. So, lastly, why would I support Jordan Peterson? Right? This seems like a contradiction, right? Especially coming from me. Again, I don't agree with everything that everybody says. Good grief, I don't. You have no idea. I've made a video recently, 3, that was Matt Walsh's video of what is a woman. I can't stand most of what Matt Walsh says. He hates pit bulls. He hates anime. So, that too alone already puts Matt Walsh on my shit list. However, you have to give the devil his due. And, if you ask questions and asking people to define their terms, I think that's fair. So I did push that video because I don't think there's enough people on the left who are willing to watch that and pay for it. Even I didn't pay for it. So, fair enough. But, some things are worth asking. And if people can't define their terms, then that's an issue. Like I started off defining my terms of what things are. So I'm going to have to read this to you. This is a quote, but I think this will also help understand where I'm coming from and why I respect Jordan Peterson and how I got led into this. Alright? So, in just a moment. So, okay, I've been working with Lucifer for 7 years now, and he has helped me see where I was. This is way back. I'll put a link to the video when I first made a switch from Christianity to Luciferianism. So he helped me see where I was in life and where I was going, and then how to change that course. Okay? So, there you go. I won't recap the whole story, but leave a link. So I'll do that. working with any god or goddess will lead you to answers that you'll need to hear regardless of its source. So I've made this point to Tony, because we used to talk a lot before that last conversation. I don't care where the source, who says 2 plus 2 is 4. It doesn't matter who says it. A fact is a fact, you know. And facts are, or truth is what the facts are, right? It doesn't matter who says it, as long as it can be proven. So, in my personal path, I've always been over compassionate and trying to help people. I've always been, despite the fact I don't get along with people, checking camera. Okay. Despite that, I've always been an agreeable person and willing to help people, even if it's at my own disadvantage. So my kindness and being agreeable has always been working against me my whole life, and I didn't know why. So, okay, so here's where I'm going to start the quote from Jordan, because I think this will actually help understand. Think of it like a bargaining game. If you're agreeable, then you're going to bargain higher on the behalf of your own, on my behalf more than your own behalf. I think I wrote that backwards, but yeah, if you're agreeable, you're going to, bargain more on their half than you are on your own. And at best, it'll be 50-50. If you're a disagreeable person, then you're going to do the opposite. I'm in this game for me, and you're in this game for you. And you're going to take care of your own interests, which is also fair enough. Well, one thing you have to be aware of is that if you're agreeable, is to not be exploited. So, I'm going to continue here. If you're agreeable and conscientious, say what you think and tell the truth about what you think. So I agree with that, and that's something that I'm working on, and this is part of what, again, Lucifer led me through this, because this is something that I personally struggle with. Maybe other people don't, but it's not just having my own opinion, but being able to go against the grain, as it will. Okay, sorry, that was my own bit. So say what you think. Okay, what you think may sound nasty. You may think may sound nasty and harsh, and maybe they are, but it's also probably true. Agreeable people do not like conflict. That's kind of the definition. They like to smooth the water, which actually kind of defines me for most of my life. I try to keep the calm, right? Keep the peace. It's not a good long-term solution. There are things that you have to talk about because they aren't going away. Also, not saying your piece and holding your tongue when you disagree can make you resentful. Now, I've experienced that. Even just talking to Tony in past conversations, I've held my tongue and I felt resentful. There's other examples, but I'm not going to go to. But it does make you resentful because it's a one-sided conversation. And as you saw, the moment you disagree, and that's why I showed you these messages, and read them to you, is to show as soon as you show an opinion that's different, then sometimes people shut down. There are consequences to sharing your opinion and to having your own opinion. Like, you should not have to bend toward anybody. If I'm wrong, then I can be pointed out where I'm wrong. Rather, so there's consequences to that. Fair enough. Well, I bring this up because the next personal challenge for someone who tried to get along and keep the peace, I was never willing to speak my mind. Or at least on rare occasions. And as soon as there was pushback, I'd kind of quiet up. There are consequences like losing friends. But I no longer feel resentful. Because stuck in one... There you go. I actually got ahead of myself. Being stuck in one-way conversations that you never allowed to disagree is far worse than losing a friend. So I was led and introduced to Jordan's content through Lucifer to help me overcome this personal challenge. Jordan is also for freedom of speech and protecting minors from being chopped up and indoctrinated by money-hungry doctors, which I'm not going to go into all that in this video, but yeah, I agree with him on that, and has also pointed out that the ideologies previously mentioned of the woke radical left. So this video has went probably a lot longer than I intended it to, but I wanted to point those things out because, yeah, I support some things Jordan says, but not everything, and there's good reason for it. So this is 35 minutes long. I'm going to leave it there, but I hope this clarifies for anybody who's been confused or is simply interested in why the change.